Hello and welcome back to I Completed 80s Music with me, the 80s Mixtaper. Hope you all had a good week and I hope you enjoyed the special episode on the 2nd of October with the superb music journalist and pop culture historian Justin Lewis. If you haven't had the chance to listen to it yet, do go back and have a listen. It's such a nostalgic wander through 80s music, and we discussed Justin's brilliant new book, Into the Groove, the 1980s, out in all good bookshops and websites now. So today we get into the back six of Playlist 28, and what a show we have lined up. We get another school disco classic, we get one of the most beautiful synth pop songs of the early decade, we finally get to Don Our Skates with Cliff Richard, that one's been marked in my calendar for some time, and we argue about what could be the last great Rolling Stones single, amongst others. As usual, due to copyright laws we can't actually play the music on the pod, but if you go to the episode description, you'll find playlists for both Spotify and Apple Music, plus a full track listing so you can play along at home. Anyway, let's get back to the music. For track 8 today, it's school disco time. We last checked in with Ottawan at the tail end of 1980 when their debut single Disco, that relentless spell out of a dance floor ideal, climbed to number 2 on the UK charts in September and hung around for 18 weeks. It was the kind of track that turned every club into a spelling bee with strobe lights, engineered by the Paris-based production duo of Daniel Vanguard and Jean Kluger, who had already notched success with acts like the Gibson Brothers and Sheila B. Devotion. Now we turn our attention to their next masterpiece of school disco vintage, Hands Up. If you were a kid in the 80s, this one is for you. Press play now. To reset the scene, Vanguard, the French songwriter behind hits for Delida, and Kluger, his Belgian counterpart, spotted vocalist Jean-Baptiste Patrick and Annette Eltis performing in Paris clubs during the mid-70s. Patrick had been fronting a group called Black Underground when Vanguard pulled him aside after a set. They reshaped the lineup into a male-female duo for better pop dynamics, naming the project Ottawan after Vanguard's drive back from Canada in 1979 when the word popped into his head as a nod to the city of Ottawa. Disco set the template. Simple hooks, multilingual flair, and a Euro disco pulse that bridged the Bee Gees' falsetto era with the synth-driven 80s. By 1981, with disco's commercial peak fading into electronica, funk and new wave, Vanguard and Kluger doubled down on the formula for Ottawan's follow-up, Hands Up, Give Me Your Heart. Released that year on Carrere Records, they wrote the track with additional input from Nellie Bill, produced and arranged it themselves, clocking in at about 4 minutes and 50 for the 12-inch maxi single. It's credited to Vanguard, Bill and Kluger on releases like the West German pressing, with no outside collaborators listed. The sound leans into a reggae-tinged disco groove, lighter on the 4-on-the-floor thump than Disco, but heavier on the do-the-dance move chants. Strangely, it's as if the single was ahead of its time, prepping for the aerobics craze. Patrick handles lead vocals with his smooth tenor while Eltis layers harmonies, their voices trading lines over a bass line that nods to island rhythms, fitting given their Guadeloupe and broader Caribbean ties. The lyrics lay it out plain in the chorus. Hands up, baby, hands up, gimme your heart, gimme, gimme, your heart, gimme, gimme. Verse 1 builds the setup. Angel face, I love your smile, love your ways, I like your style. What can I do to get closer to you? Don't think twice, I'll count to 10. Don't take advice, don't ask me when. Just come my way, simply kiss me and say, and then we're back into the chorus. It's pick-up line directless, no metaphors in sight, escalating in verse 2. No deep poetry here. Vanguard and Kluger aimed for earworms that doubled as icebreakers, the kind of lines you'd shout over a crowded bar and probably crash and burn. On the charts, Hands Up entered the UK singles list on August the 29th, 1981 at number 57. It climbed steadily, number 22 by September the 12th, number 11 on September the 26th, cracking the top 10 at number 8 on October the 3rd, and then the peak came on October the 10th at number 3. It spent 5 weeks in the top 10, sales pushed past 250,000 in the UK alone, enough for silver certification. Across Europe, it hit the top 5 in countries like France, where it hit number 2, Germany number 4, and the Netherlands number 3, while topping the charts in New Zealand for 8 straight weeks, Ottawan's longest reign anywhere. Australia saw it peak at number 25 in early 1982, and North America skipped the original until a 1991 remix surfaced stateside, too late for mainstream traction. By then, the track had racked up airplay on BBC Radio 1 and Capital FM, where DJs like Steve Wright spun it as peak light relief fodder. Vanguard later described the intent on a 2022 Guardian interview. There were no prejudices in disco. I think because its audience had experienced prejudice, it was black, it was gay. They were not in the position of being snobs. That accessibility stuck, covers piled up quickly. The Gibson Brothers did an early take in 1981, but bigger waves hit later. Sway's 1987 reggae version for Club Med Ads, climbing to number 7 in Canada and earning a Juno nomination. Hype's 1995 Eurodance flip at number 10 in Norway and number 7 in Finland, and on and on. For Ottawan though, Hands Up marked the high watermark. Their next singles, You're OK and Crazy Music, peaked outside the UK top 40. And by 1983, Eltis stepped back for family reasons, with Patrick carrying on with solo gigs. Vanguard and Kluger moved to 80s pop projects, but the track's legacy lingers in compilations like the 1992 CD reissue and endless Eurodisco playlists. For the rest of us, it's another memory of our birthday parties in the 80s. For track 9, we are back with one of the early synth powerhouses, Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark, or OMD as they are at this point. And this time we have one of the most beautiful songs of the synth pop era. Last time we were with them, back in episode 14, we dug into Enola Gay, that stark propulsive anti-war banger from their 1980 album Organisation. It hit number 8 in the UK, becoming their breakthrough, and set the stage for OMD to push further into the electronic ether. Picking up right there in 1981, the band, Andy McCluskey on bass and vocals, Paul Humphreys on keys and vocals, plus Malcolm Holmes on drums and Martin Cooper on sax and keys, holed up to record what would become Architecture and Morality. But before that album dropped in November, they needed a single to bridge the gap from Enola Gay, something to keep the momentum without rushing the full LP. What emerged was Souvenir, a track that flipped OMD's sound from cold wire tension to something warmer, more vaporous, like fog rolling off the Mersey at dawn. Press play now. Released on August the 21st, 1981, Souvenir marked the first OMD single to drop with the band billed simply as OMD, ditching the full orchestral manoeuvres in the dark mouthful for something snappier. It was written by Humphreys and Cooper, a shift from McCluskey's usual lead on compositions, and sung by Humphreys in that soft, almost hesitant tenor. The production came from Mike Howlett, who helmed Enola Gay and Organisation, but this would be his last go-round with the band. Tensions simmered during the sessions at Ridge Farm Studio in Surrey. McCluskey later recorded in a 2011 interview with OMD messages, "I liked the song, and whilst I wasn't sure about it as a single, I was prepared enough to give it a release." At the heart of Souvenir is that opening hook, a slowed down loop of choral voices layered and manipulated on a 16-track tape machine. Those loops came from band friend Dave Hughes, who'd briefly played with them early on. No direct quote survives on the fader-pushing details, but the effect swells like a distant hymn. It's OMD's synth hook as chorus formula in full bloom. No traditional vocal refrain needed. The bassline plods steady underneath McCluskey's contribution, while a percussion break in the middle 8 snaps things into focus before dissolving back into the haze. Clocking in at 3 minutes and 39 on the 7-inch, it's shipped with a die-cut sleeve designed by Peter Saville and Brett Wickens. A hole in the centre revealing the label, printed with the Dusseldorf street scene, nodding to OMD's krautrock roots. The lyrics, sparse and inward, unfold over 2 verses and an outro. Humphreys delivers them with a quiet ache. It's my direction, it's my proposal, it's so hard, it's leading me astray. My obsession, it's my creation, you'll understand it's not important now. All I need is coordination. I can't imagine my destination. My intention, ask my opinion, But no excuse, my feelings still remain, my feelings still remain. No grand narrative here, just fragments of doubt and drift, the kind of lyrics that suit a song about holding on to something fleeting. McCluskey, defending his initial reservations in a 1987 interview with Johnny Waller and Mike Humphries for the book OMD, put it plainly. I think you can always make a better case for a song you've written on your own, but everyone seems to think I hated Souvenir just because it was Paul's song. Not so. I genuinely thought it was a bit soppy, and since I hadn't written it, I found it hard to relate to. The B-side paired Souvenir with the new Stone Age, a McCluskey penned opener from the upcoming album, all tribal drums and stark synths. A 10-inch version stretched the A-side to around 4 minutes and 17, with an extended intro and an extra verse, and some pressings, like the blue vinyl or marble grey, added quirks, though Greek copies infamously warped the B-side speed, turning vocals into a hilariously slurred mess. Out it went into the UK charts, still buzzing from Enola Gay, debuting at number 41 on August the 29th. It climbed to 23 the next week, fuelled by a Top of the Pops debut on September the 3rd. By September the 15th, it peaked at number 3, blocked by Adam and the Ants' Prince Charming and Soft Cell's Tainted Love. It lingered for 14 weeks total, the 28th bestseller of 1981. And OMD's joint highest placer until Sailing on the Seven Seas tied it in 1991. Overseas, it topped charts in France, Spain and Portugal and cracked the US Billboard dance chart. Critics split. Record Mirror's Suni Fletcher called it a pleasant, slowy, very reminiscent of French movie music, while Smash Hits Pete Silverton deemed it ethereal but rather hollow, though the mag flipped later, praising it for the intro of the year. Vancouver Sun's Neil Hall zeroed on what stuck. It underscores the band's talent at writing subtle, intelligent pop songs. The video, shot by Peter Saville, leaned into romance. McCluskey cruising in Saville's red Volkswagen Carmen Ghia convertible, Humphries posing by the Palladium Bridge at Stowe Landscape Gardens. It became an early MTV staple, airing on the Best of OMD video compilations and the 2007 Architecture and Morality reissue DVD. Live, Souvenir locked into sets from the 1981 Architecture tour onwards, a crowd pleaser captured on the Drury Lane concert film from December the 4th, 1981, later DVD-ized in the 2007 reissue and the 2019 Souvenir box set. When Humphries sat out the 90s, it vanished from OMD shows, but he revived it with his side project, 1-2. Souvenir bridged OMD's experimental edge to something more accessible, paving the way for Joan of Arc and Maid of Orleans to propel Architecture and Morality to 4 million sales. Godley and Cream shouted it out on BBC Radio 1 in 81 as a recent favourite alongside Enola Gay. Pet Shop Boys' Neil Tennant and Chris Lowe bonded over it early on, having met in a London record shop in August 1981 and citing it as a key influence alongside Soft Cell's Bedsitter. Pace magazine later pegged it as one of the best synth pop songs ever written. It popped up in the BBC's Ashes to Ashes, scored covers by Mark Morris and got Moby remixes on OMD's 1998 Remixes EP. In 2019, the band's Souvenir box set, a 40th anniversary monster with all 40 singles, unreleased demos and live cuts, collected much of this history. Though it earned no Grammy nod, OMD were shifting gears. Less bunker austerity, more cathedral glow. Souvenir captured that pivot, a keepsake from a band figuring out how to make machines weep. Now, while we'd never be able to talk about the Beatles in this pod as they broke up in 1970, we have met Paul, John and George, and in doing so, skirted their history, as let's be frank, that's all you can do. A history of the Beatles would be a podcast series in its own right. They are one side of the monolith. The other side is, of course, the Rolling Stones. So what are we doing here in 1981? For track 10, playlist 28, we focus on Start Me Up, the 1981 single that roared out of Tattoo You like a chrome-plated hot rod. Released on August the 14th, 1981, this track, with Keith Richards' immediately recognisable opening G riff and Mick Jagger's raw-throated Lust, hit number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 7 on the UK singles chart. Its 3-minute burst, Charlie Watts' crisp snare, Bill Wyman's pulsing bass, Ronnie Wood's rhythmic crunch, became a stadium anthem, propelling Tattoo You to number 1 in the US, the band's 8th consecutive chart topper since Sticky Fingers. But was this the Rolling Stones' last great song? And how did it end up soundtracking Microsoft's Windows 95 launch? Let's dig in, keeping the band's backstory lean and the facts tight. This is one of my favourite ever songs. Press play now. Here's probably one of the worst potted histories of the Rolling Stones you'll ever hear. The Rolling Stones, formed in 1962 by Jagger, Richards, Brian Jones, Wyman Watts and Ian Stewart, were blues fanatics who surfed the British invasion to stardom. By 1981, they'd weathered Jones' death in 1969, drug busts in 67 and Mick Taylor's 74 exit, with Ronnie Wood joining in 75. After Some Girls in 1978 and the patchy Emotional Rescue in 1980, they needed a hit. Tattoo You was no new creation, but a raid on old tapes. Outtakes from 1972 to 1980, polished by producer Chris Quincy and the Glimmer Twins, who of course were Jagger and Richards, in Paris and New York. Start Me Up started as a 1975 reggae sketch called Never Stop from Black and Blue sessions in Rotterdam. Richards, in his 2010 memoir Life, said they cut 70 takes of reggae crap before finding the rock groove. Jagger added lyrics in 1981 in a freezing Paris warehouse. If you start me up, I'll never stop. Quincy, co-producer, told Sound on Sound in 2004 the final mix kept its raw live feel. The track's edge is undeniable. Richards' Telecaster tuned to open G with the low E string removed, a trick from Honky Tonk Women. It sets the pulse, that opening becoming immediately recognisable. Watts' drums, Richards wrote in Life, lock in like a machine. Jagger's vocals, Quincy noted, were on a one-take burst. Lyrics mix car and sex metaphors. Spread out the oil, the gasoline. I walk smooth, riding a mean, mean machine. It's pure Jagger swagger. Sneering, you make a dead man come. The video, shot in New York by Michael Lindsay Hogg, shows the band performing the song, Jagger strutting against a black backdrop. Released on Rolling Stones records in the US, Tattoo You sold 4 million copies by 1982, powered by the single's airplay grip. Start Me Up fueled the 1981 US tour, grossing $50 million over 50 dates per Billboard, packing 80,000-seat stadiums and including a Chicago Blues Club jam with Muddy Waters. The live album still live hit number 5 in the US with Start Me Up leading. Is it their last great song? AllMusic's Stuart Mason argued in 2004 it was, calling its riff unmatched by later tracks like those on Undercover in 1983 or Dirty Work in 1986, which critics slammed for flat energy. A 2023 X-Post called Tattoo You the last great Stones album, though some fans cite Saint of Me in 1997 as a late gem. The 1968 to 72 run, Beggar's Banquet to Exile on Main Street, set a high bar. Start Me Up remains a staple, played at every gig from 1981 to the 2024 Hackney Diamonds tour. In 1995, Microsoft paid $3 million to use it for Windows 95's launch, the Stones' first ad licensing. Bill Gates, per a 2020 Forbes piece by Windows marketer Brad Chase, asked Jagger's price at a party. Jagger named a high figure, expecting rejection. Gates said yes. Chase wrote, the song's hook made our start button iconic. The August the 24th, 1995 Redmond launch had Gates and Steve Ballmer dancing very awkwardly to it, with friend stars Jennifer Aniston and Matthew Perry in promo skits. Rumours of a $14 million deal, Chase said, were band-driven to boost future fees. Windows 95 sold 7 million copies in 5 weeks per CNN, the riff linking boomer nostalgia to Tech's New Frontier. The song hit the Super Bowl in 2006 and live albums like Flashpoint in 1991 and Shine a Light in 2008. Start Me Up is raw alchemy, a riff Richards called a miracle in a 2010 Guardian interview, born from a scrapped reggae take. Its chart run, number 2 in the US and number 7 in the UK, and tour dominance cement it, but its last great status sticks. Later albums, like Bridges to Babylon in 1997, had sparks, but none matched this jolt. It's a spark plug, firing up crowds, selling software, and keeping the Stones' engine roaring, even if their peak grit had faded. For track 11, I mean, what is there to say about our next song? Iconic, ironic, it's definitely on Alan Partridge's playlist. Its video is unintentional comedy gold, and yet, when you think of Cliff Richard in the 80s, and someone may be trying too hard to remain cool, Wired for Sound is where we land, and it's brilliant. For a man trying to impress a girl with small speakers and tall speakers, I mean, why wouldn't you? Take a trip to the new city of Milton Keynes in 1981 with me now, pop on your roller skates and press play. Co-written by Alan Tarney and B.A. Robertson, that quirky Scot who we met right back in the first episode of this podcast, who'd later co-craft the Weepy the Living Years. It's a 3-minute synth pop jaunt about the Walkman obsession, those chunky cassette players just hitting UK shops in July 1981. Tarney produces, plays most instruments, with Graham Jarvis on drums on the album of the same name. It's Cliff trying to surf the 80s new wave, but wow, the corniness. You have to admire his relentless enthusiasm. The single lands August the 29th, 1981, backed by Carry Me, entering the UK singles chart at number 33 and peaking at number 4 on September the 13th for a week. It lingers 9 weeks, snagging silver from the BPI for 250,000 UK sales. It's got a global win too, number 2 in Australia and South Africa, top 10 in Ireland and New Zealand, charting in Germany and the Netherlands. The album hits number 4 on the UK albums chart, sticks for 25 weeks and goes platinum with 1 million sold worldwide. Cliff had been chasing a rockier edge with I'm No Hero in 1980, but Wired for Sound dives headphones into synths, all glossy beats and bass lines that chug like a toy train. It's earnest, it's upbeat, it's Cliff thinking he's the future, and to a degree he still had a lot to offer. But we're chuckling at the sheer audacity of it. A 40-year-old crooner preaching the gospel of portable audio like he's just discovered fire. The lyrics are a love letter to tech, so on the nose it's almost parody. It opens with that chant, I like small speakers, I like tall speakers. If they've music, they're wired for sound. Verse 1's pure cheese. Walking about with a head full of music, cassette in my pocket, and I'm going to use it stereo. Out on the street, you know. He's cruising to work. Into the car, go to work, and I'm cruising. I never think I'll blow all my fuses. Traffic flows into the breakfast show. Romance, it's stereo compatibility tests. I met a girl and she told me she loved me. I said you love me, then love means you must like what I like. My music is dynamite. She claps back in the bridge. She said, I'm not a girl you put on at standby. I am a girl who demands that her love is amplified. Switching to overdrive. The chorus is Pete Cliff. Power from the needle to the plastic. AM, FM, I feel so ecstatic now. It's music I've found and I'm wired for sound. It fades on that mantra with a final spoken gem. I like small speakers, I like tall speakers, wall speakers, most of all I like loudspeakers. It's so sincere you almost feel bad laughing, but come on. Cliff's out there selling us some Walkmans like he's pitching a time machine. And I mean, you've just got to love it. How could you not? The video is the cherry on this kitsch sundae. Filmed at the Central Milton Keynes Shopping Centre, Europe's biggest indoor mall, when it opened in 1979. Directed by Stuart Orme, Cliff, pushing 41 at this point, straps on roller skates, slips into leather pants and aviators, and clips on a Walkman like he's Buck Rogers. He glides round the marble halls past tropical plants, dodging dancers in pastel unitards, pink, blue, purple, green. We get underpasses, we get into the shopping centre, artificial plants, all of which still exist, by the way. If you visit, go to Middleton Hall and then just walk round the outside of the John Lewis. More than 40 years later, it is the same, exactly the same. They shut down sections for a day, locals gawking, as noted in a 2021 Milton Keynes Citizen piece on the centre's history. Aired on top of the pops, it fueled the singles chart run. Picture it, Milton Keynes, this concrete new town of roundabouts and ambition, hosting Cliff's roller disco utopia. It's 1981 distilled, Walkman's barely arrived, roller rinks fading, Cliff skating like he's dodging middle age itself. We're laughing not at the song's joy, but at how Cliff, the Christian teetotaler since '67, thinks he's cracked the code to cool. It's pathos in motion. The eternal teen, so down with the kids, or at least he thinks he is, he's roller skating into our ironic and cruel hearts. Cliff played it live on his 1981 tour, and it resurfaced as a live track on 1990's From a Distance single. The album's other cuts, like Daddy's Home, which hit number 2 in 1982, kept Cliff's star shining. But Wired for Sound is Cliff at his most glorious pomp, and gloriously unaware, plugging into the 80s with a grin so wide you can't help but smile back, shaking your head at the sheer lovable dorkiness of it all. It's secretly, surely, everyone's guilty pleasure. Alright, for our penultimate track, let's rewind and set the stage properly. Picture this, it's September 1981 and Linx, that brick funk duo of David Grant, Peter Martin and Bob Carter, are back after their modest flicker of Throw Away the Key, their number 21 UK chart single from June 1981 that spent 9 weeks in the top 75. Now they're sliding into your speakers with So This Is Romance, their 5th single, a 4-minute slice of boogie funk heartache that entered the UK singles chart on September the 5th, 1981 and peaked at number 15 by October the 3rd, with 9 total weeks on the listing. It's got Grant's yearning tenor, Martin's popping bass and Carter's keyboard stabs, all cooked up in Scorpio Studios under their own Extreme Productions banner. So cue this up and let's dive into the groove while I unpack this tale of betrayal with a beat you can't help but move to. This is track 12, playlist 28. From the original sextet lineup from 1980, drummer Andy Duncan, guitarist Canute Edwards and backing vocalist Junior Giscombe had peeled off after the first flush of hits, leaving this stripped-down unit to carry the Brit Funk torch. They were self-producing under the banner of Extreme Productions Limited, with Chrysalis Records footing the bill for what would become their 5th chart entry. So This Is Romance dropped in September, backed by Starbright, a more upbeat B-side that didn't make much noise on its own. It's pure Linx, a boogie funk groove with popping bass lines from Martin, Carter's electric piano stabs cutting through like misplaced optimism, and Grant's voice starting wry and building to wounded indignation. The track was written by the trio Grant, Martin and Carter and engineered in that tight Scorpio space where the walls probably still echoed with intuition sessions. No big name guests, no lavish strings, just the 3 of them dialing in a sound that nods to American soul imports while keeping one foot in the UK club scene, where Brit Funk was bubbling up alongside acts like Level 42. Chart-wise, it entered the UK singles chart on September the 5th, 1981 at number 58. It climbed steadily, number 42 the next week, then 28, 23, 18, hitting its peak at number 15 on October the 3rd, right as the autumn leaves were turning. Not the intuition rocket, that one had double the peak and twice the legs, but solid enough to keep momentum, outselling Throw Away the Key and slotting Linx into that post-disco sweet spot where soul met synth-pop. It was their 3rd consecutive top 20 entry, part of a run that saw them place 6 singles between mid-1980 and mid-1982. Sales figures aren't public, but with Chrysalis pushing promo, it moved enough units to justify the 12-inch version, which stretched the track to 5 minutes and 14, with an extended Rio mix, tropical percussion fades and all, remastered later in 2011 for digital reissues. Lyrically, it's Grant channeling a cousin's relationship disaster. A kind of story that starts as a gossip and ends in a gut punch. It opens dry. I got a note from my cousin the other day. He said his lady had gone on a holiday. He thought she'd be back in a week or so, but that was more than 2 months ago. The refrain lands like a shrug. So This Is Romance repeated twice, then evolving to You Don't Stand a Chance after the 3rd verse piles on the details, water skiing, driving lessons, a gigolo named Romero hogging evenings at the cocktail bar. There's a piano solo midway, sparse and tinkling before the bridge twists the knife. He felt mistreated, but what could he say? This was her idea of a holiday. The kicker's in verse 4. Cousin shows up to drag her home, only to learn she's been married the week prior. Sorry I had no time to let you know, but can I pour you a drink before you go? And the fade out mocks with goodbye, goodbye. It's textbook Brit-funk storytelling, betrayal wrapped in irony, delivered with enough groove to dance through the denial. Promotion kicked off with the top of the pop slot in late September 81. Grant rocking the geek chic with some big glasses and then an all-white vest and trousers combo. They gigged it across UK clubs where Linx shared bills with two-tone holdovers and early electro acts. Around the same time, the band cut Don't Get In My Way for the C81 cassette, that landmark New Musical Express compilation, rubbing shoulders with the Teardrop Explodes and the Psychedelic Furs. Linx's lone track there underscoring their crossover cred in the indie soul overlap. David Grant later reflected on the band's approach in liner notes for the 2011 reissue of Intuition, saying, "We were always about the emotion in the lyrics, making sure they connected with what people were going through." No direct quote ties to this single, but it fits the vibe. Post-Intuition, glow fading into real talk cynicism. By 1982, Linx would chase this with Paying the Price of Love. But So This Is Romance marks the last high point, and it is here we say goodbye to this force of Brit-funk. Grant's solo turn loomed with hits like Watching You, Watching Me, while Martin joined 23 Skidoo and Carter faded into session work. Play this track loud, and that rhythm pulls you back to when the UK soul was finding its voltage. In the crisp autumn of 1981, as Los Angeles hummed with the afterglow of disco's fade and the first whispers of MTV's arrival, Quincy Jones released Betcha, Wouldn't Hurt Me, a track that cut through the LA traffic like a Cadillac that knew the back streets in town. Pulled from his album The Dude, the song unfurled with Patty Austin's voice gliding over a bed of synths and percussion, co-written by Stevie Wonder, Jones's friend since their teenage days in Seattle, and Stephanie Andrews. Wonder handled the synthesizer arrangements alongside Jerry Hay and Jones himself, while Austin delivered the lead, her tone a mix of velvet accusation and quiet resolve. The single, the fifth from The Dude, carried a charts peak of number 3 in the US, but settled at number 52 in the UK, where it lingered for 3 weeks after entering in late 1981. Backed by Louis Johnson's bass lines, J.R. Robinson's drums, Steve Lukather's guitar, Rick Fillingane's keyboards, and Paulino de Costa's percussion, it clocked in at just over 5 minutes. A compact lesson in emotional propulsion, where heartbreak meets the dance floor without apology. This is track 13, playlist 28, our final track today. Quincy Delight Jones Jr. entered the world on March the 14th, 1933 in Chicago's South Side. The elder son of a carpenter father and a mother who worked at a bank but spent stretches in mental institutions due to schizophrenia. His parents split soon after his brother Lloyd arrived, and the boys shuttled to their grandmother's in Louisville for a spell. By age 10, the family had relocated again to Bremerton's segregated World War II era housing near Seattle, a Navy town where Jones dodged mischief like raiding the armory's lemon meringue pies. Music seeped in early, gospel choirs at 12, then trumpet under the tutelage of Ray Charles, a 16-year-old blind prodigy who strung a line from Florida to Seattle just to land gigs there. "We were friends our entire lives," Jones said of Charles in a 2008 National Endowment for the Arts interview. Jones ditched high school for Lionel Hampton's band at 15, trumpet in hand, slipping onto the bus before his parents could object, though Gladys Hampton clocked the child immediately. By the early 1950s, he was Dizzy Gillespie's musical director, honing arrangements that sharpened bebop's edges. Paris Called Next studies with Nadia Boulanger, the composer who'd shaped Aaron Copland from 1957 to 1960. Back stateside, Mercury Records tapped him as an A&R man, where he orchestrated albums like Sarah Vaughan's Sarah Slightly Classical in 1958 and produced his debut, This Is How I Feel About Jazz, in 1956. Europe beckoned again in 1960 as vice president and musical director for Barclay Records in Paris, a perch that let him tour and score his first film, The Pawnbroker, in 1964, all moody strings and urban pulse. The 1960s marked Jones's pivot into film and TV scoring, a vein he mined deep. He composed for 30 features by decade's end, including Sidney Lumet's The Deadly Affair in 1966 with its harpsichord-tinged suspense, and Norman Jewison's In the Heat of the Night in 1967, where Sidney's theme deployed flutes and vibes to underscore racial tension without a word. TV followed, themes for Ironside in 1967, its wah-wah guitar hook a staple of cop show grit, and The Bill Cosby Show in 1969, blending soul with sitcom swing. A brain aneurysm sidelined him in 1974, ruptured during a gig in Tahoe. It required 2 surgeries and a year of recovery, leaving memory lapses and 6 steel clips in his skull. But Jones rebounded, signing to A&M from 1969 to 1981, shifting from jazz purism towards pop's broader lanes. As a producer, Jones' touch turned gold or platinum. He arranged Ray Charles's modern sounds in country and western music in 1962, fusing gospel soul with Nashville twang on cuts like Born to Lose, which hit number 3 on the pop chart and sold over 1 million. For Leslie Gore, at 16 he shaped It's My Party in 1963 in a New Jersey basement, adding Latin percussion to rocket it to number 1. Sinatra trusted him with bassy collaborations, It Might As Well Be Swing in 64 and Sinatra at the Sands in 66, the latter capturing live sand swagger with Jones corralling the Count's band into Vegas-type precision. Quincy had a loving style about him, Charles once said of their early bond, a thread that pulled in later sessions like Charles's Guess I'll Hang My Tears Out to Dry. The 1970s amplified his output. He produced Aretha Franklin's Hey Now Hey, The Other Side of the Sky in 73, layering her voice over funk bass on Take a Look, and Chaka Khan's self-titled debut in 1978, where I'm Every Woman earned a Grammy nod for his horn-driven strut. The Brothers Johnson got 3 straight platinums under him. Look out for number 1 in 76 with I'll Be Good to You, Right on Time in 77 and Blam in 78, all topping R&B charts with George's Guitar Filigrees and Lewis's Thump. Rufus Rufusized in 1974 brought Chaka's edge to You Got the Love, while brothers-in-law George Benson's Give Me the Night in 1980 went platinum. Its title track snagging 3 Grammys with atmospheric keys and Noel Rodgers guest spots. Jones's own albums Stacked Winds, Walking in Space in 69 and Smack Water Jack in 71 fused jazz with R&B. Body Heat in 1974 sold 1 million and held Billboard's top 5 for 6 months, and Sounds and Stuff Like That in 78 hit number 1 on the jazz charts. By 1981, he'd notched 4 platinum and 7 gold albums in the US alone, his productions bridging bebop's complexity with pop's immediacy. Over 50 scores, countless sessions, a hand in reshaping soul's soundstage. Betcha Wouldn't Hurt Me arrived amid this torrent, on the dude which drew 12 Grammy nods and 3 wins, including Best Instrumental Arrangement for Vela. Austin, Jones's goddaughter, sang lead on 4 tracks. Her phrasing on the verse, Loving you came easily, yet it made me blind to all there was to see. Now my heart is filled with pain. You understand I never will. How did it come to be that you don't love me still? Now it's getting to be plain, turning betrayal into a syncopated sigh. The chorus hooks deeper. If you really cared about anyone else, I know you wouldn't hurt me. If you cared about more than yourself, I bet you wouldn't go. If you cared about anyone else, I know you wouldn't hurt me. If you cared about more than yourself, you wouldn't walk out the door. Wanda's keys bubble under, Phil and Gaynor's adds electric piano filigree, and the rhythm section Johnson's walk, Robinson's snap, propels it forward, a machine built for both heartache and hips. Jones called production part babysitter, part shrink, a role he embodied on the dude, wrangling guests like Toots Thielemann's harmonica on Just Once and James Ingram's debut croon on 100 Ways. The album's I Know Corrida remake hit number 11 in the UK, but Betcha lingered in clubs, its boogie funk pulse sampled later by everyone from Big Daddy Kane to modern edits. For Austin, the track was personal turf, a godfather's faith made manifest in studio hours that stretched like Seattle fog. By 1981, Jones had QS Records rolling, a label that would soon house Benson, Ingram and even Sinatra's Twilight Cuts. His scores, over 50 by then, had etched tension into films like The Getaway in 72 with its chase scene brass blasts, and Roots in 1977, earning him an Emmy. But Betcha is a beautiful, undervalued song. Jones at 48, post-aneurysm, channeling lifelong bonds. Charles's early fire, Gillespie's charts, Boulanger's discipline, into a groove that questions without collapsing. The second verse seals it. I did my best to bring you joy. How can you just leave me like a broken toy? Where's the man that once was you? If I could be within your mind, I would never think to treat you this unkind. The pain you caused will come to you. Fade out on the chorus, repeat, and you're left with the ache, the beat, the man who built empires from both. So that's that for playlist 28. We'll be taking a well-earned break next week. Even the 80s mixtaper needs to sweep up autumn leaves and do some DIY every now and again. But do join us in the week after, where we'll be plunging deep into autumn 1981 and playlist 29. And in that playlist, we introduce 70s glam stars Slade, San Francisco rockers The Tubes, X10cc and 80s trendsetters Godley and Cream, the frankly ridiculous yet somehow iconic Birdie song, and we also get Lionel Richie going solo, and then Adamant's big moment. War paint on, everybody. Remember, folks, ridicule is nothing to be scared of. Until then, have a great week. We'll see you next time. Take care.